All right. Good morning, everybody. It is just after the top of the hour, and we are going to get started here in just a few moments. I am Julia Koster. I am the Executive Director for the Summit Alliance of Vacation Rental Managers. And we are here today for a really important discussion on safety and fire and how you can protect your home and your guests going into the upcoming wildfire season here in Summit County. If you were with us a couple of years ago, you remember we hosted a similar event. This is going to be a bigger version of that. So there will be some new information for you. There will be some exciting tips and tricks and things that you can do to protect your home and your guests. And we hope that you will also take the recording of this event and share it with folks that you think might be interested. So after the event is over today, you will receive an email that has the link to the recording, which will stay on our SAVRM YouTube channel. So you can go in and access that at any time. There will also be some important things here today regarding the Summit County Alerts system, which you've probably seen some updates about recently. And then we also have some more things that you can use to improve your fire safety at your property here in Summit County. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Megan Layfield and Hannah, or do you say Hannah? You say Hannah, right?
Hannah Olson.
From Summit Fire and EMS. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julia. We're really happy to be here. I am Megan Layfield, Summit Fire and EMS's Community Risk Reduction Coordinator. And this is Hannah.
Yeah, Hannah Olson. I'm Summit Fire EMS's Fuel Specialist on the Wildland Division.
Yeah, and we're stoked to talk with you all about how to keep your spaces as safe as possible. So we're going to talk about short-term rental safety. And we'll go to the next slide, which is really cool. So we wanted to start with Community Connect. It is a free, secure, and easy to use digital platform that allows you to share with first responders all kinds of critical information about your household, like your emergency contact information, access and utility location information. It's super easy to create an account. You can just use this QR code here in the bottom right corner of your screen. That'll take you straight to the homepage, where you'll just need your email, phone number, and address to create an account. Once you're in there, you can apply for backyard campfire permits, input all of that contact access information that we talked about. That way, if ever we do have to respond to your home, we're already looking up en route all of the things that we would need to have the speediest response possible. And I'll just show you on this next slide here what the Community Connect portal looks like from your side once you've created an account.
Hey, Megan, we're actually not seeing that Community Connect slide. Are you able to click through to that one on your end? It
Yeah,
looks like
so
we are stuck on the home slide.
stuck on the home slide. Okay, we're still sharing, so let's hide this. We'll pop back over to here. Let's try stopping the share and restarting it real quick. Okay,
Perfect.
so
There we are. We see it now.
okay, I'm curious if it's going to continue to advance as I progress through the slides. So please do let me know if that's not showing up again.
Yeah,
But
that
this,
was thanks.
okay, good. I'd like to go back one slide so that you all can see that QR code. So let's see if this will work. Are you able to see a QR code in the bottom right of your screen? Yeah, okay, perfect. So this is that Community Connect slide. There's the link below, but that QR code just takes you straight there. And again, this is a very useful tool for you as the homeowner and then us for the first responder. So please create an account if you don't already have one. And also super important to know about having a Community Connect account is that you will be automatically notified if something is happening at your home. There is an alert that occurs if there's an incident ongoing at your home. So just another way to stay looped into your own property. And then we've got some questions that we wanted to put in here. Home fires is going to be our first question. So we're going to launch this and hopefully it works. You should be able to put in what you think is the answer to this question. So here's question number 1.
We'll give you about 15 seconds.
Is everyone seeing that? Okay, yeah, we're getting answers. Perfect.
And I'm sorry, I've got one more piece of technology that is bugging us here this morning. It sounds like our volume is a little bit low. Are you able to adjust your volume on your end or maybe just speak up a little bit?
Yeah, I can do both for sure. Is this a better
Much better.
volume? Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, so we give about 30 seconds. We're going to go ahead and end the poll. So the question, where do most home fires occur? Garage, kitchen, or bathroom? 100% correct. Kitchens. Exactly right. Yeah, I think everybody understands how risky home cooking can be. So just something to keep in mind as we progress on to our next slide, which is talking to us about fire extinguishers. So every home should have at least one fire extinguisher in it. Residential properties are best served by this type pictured here. It's a 2A10BC, and those letters are the classes of fires that extinguishers can effectively fight. The Class A compound puts out ordinary combustible fires that are caused by wood, paper, or plastic. The B is for flammable liquid fires caused by oil, gas, petroleum, and Class C fires are for electrical fires, so Class C, anything that can charge. And they should always be visible and accessible, your extinguishers, wherever they are in your house. I know it's customary to stick them underneath a kitchen cabinet, but then your renters don't know it's there. So it is important to make sure it's visible and easily accessible. And ideally, there would be an extinguisher located in the kitchen, garage, and near any grilling equipment. But if your property only has one, then please let's put it where it makes the most sense, and that would be in your kitchen.
We have a quiz for you.
Yes.
Again.
Yes. Thank you.
Fire extinguishers.
Mouse over. So we're going to launch another poll. And this one, again, we'll give you about 15-20 seconds. We're just wondering, are fire extinguishers in your home units visible and readily accessible? Oh, 100%. Okay. And we'll give it about 5 more seconds. Okay. So looks like about 75% of you said yes and 25% of you said no. That's actually great to have that many people with visible, readily accessible extinguishers. So let's try and move that to 100%.
Megan, where's the best place to have one? Like mine's under my sink in the kitchen.
Yeah. So you want it somewhere along your exit pathway, and it should always be mounted on the wall around hand height so that when you're standing, it's like right around where your hand would just reach for it easily off of the wall, and again along your exit pathway so that you're never putting a fire between you and your exit. Great question. We should also be ensuring that they're inspected annually, which can be a little tricky in this area. We do keep a business resource list on our website. So that you can use that to find a service technician that works in this area. And I can send that link to you, Julia, so you can forward that on to your membership, just to make it as easy as possible for people. And then let's go on to the next slide, which will be about our exit pathways. So exit pathways are critical components to buildings, especially when people are unfamiliar with buildings, such as in short-term rentals. So posting at least 2 exit pathways from your house and your neighborhood, ensuring that your address is listed on that page. This could save occupants precious minutes during an emergency. And just think of what you find in hotel rooms, right? That's exactly the same kind of thing we're looking for here, because these really are like hotels. Do we have another? Nope, not yet. Okay, great. So just making sure that we're posting our exit pathways on the front of the main entry door, ideally inside bedrooms as well, and then really just making sure that we're putting our addressing on there for tourists who really don't know where they're going once they get there, you know. And then it'd be awesome if we could show the locations of our fire extinguishers and our medical kits that are located in the house on that map. We'll move on to occupancy limits. So every single building has an occupancy limit. And that is simply put just how many people can fit safely into a building. Emphasis on safely, because we can fit 100 people into a house, but that doesn't make it a safe space to be. So a good rule of thumb for calculating residential occupancy limits is to count 2 people for every bedroom and then add in 2 additional people. So if we have a 3-bedroom house, that can hold no more than 8 people. And please keep in mind, closets are not bedrooms, even though some of the closets are bigger than bedrooms in this area. We'll move on to carbon monoxide, which we have a poll for. So I'm going to launch this question. We'll give you about 15 seconds. Okay, we're going to go ahead and end it. 100% of you got it right. Carbon monoxide smells like nothing. It is one of the things that makes it so scary. It is a colorless, odorless gas. It's a byproduct of incomplete combustion of fossil fuels like gas, coal, and wood. It's highly toxic. So if your home has a garage or any fuel-fired appliances in it at all, please ensure you have carbon monoxide detectors. And the screen is showing you how those should be laid out. We want them within 20 feet of any fuel-fired appliance, located within 15 feet of the bedrooms, at least one on every floor, and then within 10 feet of a door that's attached to a garage.
Megan, how pressing of an issue are carbon? I mean, how often do we run into this as a fire department?
So pretty regularly, actually, and we just had 2 recent calls that could have been catastrophic. I will touch briefly on one call. It was at a residential unit. It was a multifamily residential building, I think a set of 4 townhomes. Everyone in the building was awoken by the carbon monoxide detectors. However, only one person called 911 because often carbon monoxide detectors are not linked into a monitored system. So it's just alerting occupants in the building, not people outside of the building. Everyone else in this residential building was trying to turn off their alarm so they could go back to bed. Had they been successful, they likely would not have woken up. This gas is lethal. So luckily this one woman thought to call 911. We got there, we detected lethal levels of carbon monoxide. We evacuated the home, realized that someone had left a vehicle on in a garage. That is what had caused the carbon monoxide to build up in this building. So evacuated, cleared it out, got everyone taken care of. 5 people were hospitalized. No one died, but again, could have been catastrophic. So carbon monoxide, very serious. Let's take it seriously. Great question, Hannah. Thank you. Next slide. Yes, so smoke alarms, another critical component to a home's warning system. So smoke alarms warnings can cut the risk of dying from a fire in the home by almost half. These things save more lives than firefighters do. Don't tell a firefighter that though. Please ensure you have them installed throughout your home and that they're in good working order. Super easy to test them. You just press the test button and wait for it to beep. If it doesn't beep, then you need to replace the batteries. Also, if it chirps at you, which is a noticeably different sound than the beeping, a chirping sound just means you need to replace the batteries. You can get a monitored system that has 24/7 monitoring, or you can just get a local system, which is much less upkeep, but still super effective. You do need to make sure these are getting tested annually by a certified technician, fire alarm technician. And then if you do have a monitored system or a Knox box affixed to your property, you just want to make sure that the keys inside of that are up to date. So those Knox boxes house keys to the home so that we can let ourselves in the event of an emergency when no one is home rather than breaking your door. Yeah, next slide. Okay, this is about temporary wiring. So all temporary wiring should be safe. That means that surge protectors should be plugged directly into wall outlets. We should never have a surge protector plugged into an extension cord. We want to make sure that those same surge protectors are loaded with less than the max amperage allowance, which brings me up to our next question. This one will give you about 20 seconds for.
Who chose just hope for the best?
Love the honesty. Okay, let's go ahead and
Just, hope for the best, right?
That's what we're all doing all the time. But there are also proactive ways that we can ensure that the best outcome is what we encounter. So if we are working with devices, we want to make sure that we are checking the stamps on the back or bottom of those devices. It tells you how many amps that device has. You just want to add up all of those amps and then check the device stamp on the bottom of the surge protector and make sure that you are working within the limits of that device. Please check these amperage allowances. This is so important and it's very often overlooked. We also never want to cover these devices, extension cords or surge protectors, with carpets, rugs, or blankets. That can cause overheating. It can hide an issue with the device itself. Also, fun fact, any temporary wiring like surge protectors or extension cords should only be plugged in for a maximum of 90 consecutive days. These are meant to be temporary. So that extension cord that's in your garage, it's been plugged in for about 15 years. Go check on that. Go feel it, make sure it's not feeling warm, unplug it, give it a rest. And ideally, we really just would not be providing power strips unless totally necessary in our short-term rentals. Cool, next slide. Barbecue grills. Yeah, so grills and exterior heating devices, these can totally be sources of fires, right? So we want to keep both of these a safe distance away from your houses. So important to refer to manufacturer's instructions for distancing recommendations. If you threw the manual away, like all of us do, you can find them online really easily. And I can't stress enough what an excellent resource your manuals are for anything as simple as a grill or any kind of a heating device. Just read them. They tell you how far to keep them away from combustible or flammable items to ensure that we're not causing a fire. And then also just get in the habit of looking at each component before and after use to ensure that it's in good working condition, because things happen, right? Accidents happen. People don't even realize that they've damaged a piece of equipment until they go to turn it on and suddenly it's malfunctioning. So, keep an eye on your things and just make sure everything's in good working order. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, this is so important. Seconds count in every emergency, and finding addressing can really slow us down. So please take a moment to look at your home's addressing numbers. They should be visible from the street, as if you were a first responder headed to your home. You want to make sure that from the middle of the street where a first responder would be, you can see your home. What's pictured here is really my dream addressing. It's huge, it's backlit, it's contrasting with the background. I mean, this is exactly what you want to be looking for as far as addressing goes. You want your home to be unmissable, like cannot miss it, especially considering it's winter here, 8 months out of the year. We get lots of snow, sleet, hail, all kinds of fun weather. So first responders are really trying to see through all of that weather to find these homes and get in there and help people as fast as possible. And that's it for me.
Need a quiz.
Oh, one more poll. Here we go.
All right. 15-20 seconds now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All of the above. Trimming back vegetation, making sure it's not blocking your address markings, making sure the address numbers pop, and let your tenants know where they're staying. The person who booked the rental is not going to memorize your address, and none of their friends are either. So please post that address anywhere inside that's going to make it clear and visible for your tenants.
Awesome. So questions so far. We're kind of going to pivot from life safety inside of structures to safety outside of structures and talking about wildfire. Anything from Megan before we do a little bit of a pivot?
I don't don't see any questions in the Q&A, but I do have a question that has come up in the past for some of our property managers. And that is if somebody has a hardwired smoke alarm system,
Mhm.
is there a way for Summit Fire to come out and check that and make sure things are working okay? Is it something we would have like a local business do? What's the best way to double check those?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Julia. So we cannot check your system beyond an acceptance testing. So you would want to reach out to a company that works in this area that is certified to work on fire alarm systems. Again, Julia, I'll make sure that you have that business resource list because we keep a running list of every business that works well in this area. On anything fire and life safety related, fire alarm systems are on that list. So I'll make sure you get that so you can forward it to your membership. Um,
Awesome. And then I just had somebody ask, we've got two great questions here. This one might be more for Hannah as she goes to the outside stuff regarding fire danger this year. Are we expecting higher than normal fire danger, average, below average?
So far, our models are showing about average, and it's tricky. Like the right, we have 3-month forecasts that we feel reasonably confident in. We also have season forecasts that we feel like so confident in, and because we had a good snow year, and because we are not losing our snow super fast, even though it kind of feels that way. I'm looking out the window. We're in decent shape. We are coming into that our first fire season where all of our snow melts and all of the dormant grass and brush from last year is well, it's dead and just sort of waiting to green up and is available for fire. We usually have like a handful of small fires around this time, and then once green up happens and everything is blooming and pulling water into new growth, then our fire danger is sort of quelled for, think like June and early July, and then the fall is really when we get into our main fire season here, where all those plants start to go dormant again. If we've had any residual monsoon activity, it's sort of dried out. So like late August, September, October is when we'll start seeing our real sort of big fire behavior. And unfortunately, at this point in the season, it's hard for us to predict what exactly our big late season fires will be like. But if you've been around the county for a little while, and you can think to some of our bigger fires here, Ptarmigan, Buffalo, Peak 2, those all happen sort of late in the summer when you are not thinking about fire season necessarily anymore, like October, right before the snow flies, and then once the snow flies, it's
Once things dry out more, yeah.
yeah.
And then I had somebody ask about geographic limits for the different fire departments. Is there like a map on the Summit Fire website or like red, white, and blue? Do you guys have like boundary maps so folks can see who their local fire district would be?
Yeah, if you're in Breckenridge or Blue River, your fire district is red, white, and blue, and we work so closely with them. We share all kinds of SOPs. We share a training division. We share safety personnel resources. If we're either district is overloaded with calls, we respond to each other's districts. They're separate fire departments, but in a lot of ways they're incredibly interconnected and dynamic. The cutoff line is the high school.
So Summit Fire is everything beyond the high school, and red, white, and blue is high school south.
Yeah. If you're in Farmers Corner, you're probably going to get red, white, and blue. If you're the high school north, if you're on Swan Mountain Road, you're going to get Summit Fire. Mm-hmm. And Summit Fire responds to right, obviously all the towns, Frisco, Silverthorne, Dillon, but also like Montezuma and Heaney. We go all the way up to Heaney.
Mm-hmm. And as far as whether there's a map on our website, I'm not sure, but I will double check and I'll include a map in that email to you, Julie, with the business resource list link.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Great. All right. Well, Anna, take it away on the outside stuff.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna get backyard campfires out of the way because it's not super I don't know, super glamorous or interesting. But as a reminder, as of 2018, Summit County residents in both districts are required to have a backyard campfire permit um, for backyard campfires, and that permit is acquired through Community Connect. We can repost that website if it's useful to you. You renew every 2 years. It's a pretty straightforward renewal process. We just ask that you make sure your residents know sort of what the what the rules are, what they're doing. We don't like respond to a ton of backyard campfires that are out of control, but the potential's there for sure. So please help us do this responsibly. And these are sort of intuitive guardrails for this program, but like we ask that people only have fires when the fire danger is low, and that the size of the fire itself is kept pretty reasonable, like 3 by 2 feet is I think what we say, and kept attended. It's not right next to a building that could potentially catch on fire, and then that there's also a means of extinguishing that fire on site. So the house in the picture is a pretty good example, right? Like we have wood siding sort of right there, but there's enough spacing. The fire itself is on a non-combustible surface. The hose is right there. They're probably not going to be able to build like a raging bonfire in that little fire ring. Mm-hmm. Okay, we can move on. So now I'm gonna like give you guys kind of the crash course in how to protect your homes and properties from wildfire. And this sort of falls into two silos. The first is structure hardening, and the second is woody fuels management. So structure hardening is like what that structure is actually made out of and how receptive it is either to ember cast or to an encroaching flaming front. And then the woody fuels management is sort of like what's in the yard and how readily can what is in the yard escort a fire to that building. So the image on this slide is of a test that the International Business IBHS. It's an international insurance business and home safety. Anyway, they do experiments basically to like identify best practices for who they want to insure and who they don't want to insure. And they built this structure in a big lab building and basically like pelted it with flying embers that you can see in the picture. And so the house on our left is sort of a standard worst case scenario house where it has wood mulch and wood siding and vinyl gutters and a wood fence, or I'm sorry, a wood deck that meets a wood door. And then the house on the right has it has vinyl siding and a steel gutter and obviously like cobble or gravel as ground material in that area right next to the house. And you know, like the results kind of speak for themselves, right? Like the house on the right is not not catching on fire, and the house on the left is going for it. So best practices here are a class A roof, vents and openings that are covered with a metal mesh that's sort of fine. 1/8 inch is our best practice number. Gutters, patios, patio furniture, like anything that an ember could land on the exterior of the house and catch the house on fire should be considered for removal or maintenance. We don't want like piles of leaves getting stuck in in gutters or in the corners on decks or underneath decks. Double pane tempered glass windows are best practices. That takes a lot of heat for those to break. Siding material and the height of the skirting around the bottom of the home is important. Like a lot of our sort of mountain modern homes have wood siding and then a big slab of stone skirting where the siding meets the ground, and that's great. And then one of our big lessons learned from the Marshall Fire down in Denver was the way that combustible extensions like decks and fences can sort of serve as a wick to bring a fire to a structure. So if you are imagining some of the properties that you have or manage, think about ways to sort of separate the combustible fence from the house, like create a single gate panel that is made out of metal so that it creates a break in that wood fuel, if you will, wood fence. And then the same with decks. Like we treat wood decks as a part of the structure because if the deck catches on fire, then your home has a good chance of catching on fire too.
And we've got another poll question here. We're gonna go ahead and launch that. Give you about 15-20 seconds. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end this.
Oh, I think two of you didn't answer at all. That's okay. I should have given you some hints first, maybe. But so now we talked about structure hardening. Now we move into the sort of, we call them home ignition zones, the yard, what is growing around the structure. And we separate the 100 feet around a structure into 3 zones. The first 5 feet we call zone 1. And what we want to see there is, guys, nothing combustible. And I know you're probably like, nothing. Like, I really mean nothing. And as we have, as we analyze these tragedy fires that we've had over the last 5 and 10 years, and increasingly have like Ring doorbell footage of how structures are catching on fire, we're seeing that like this zone 1 is really, really where the rubber hits the road in terms of whether or not a house burns down. The factors that contribute to a house burning down are factors that are immediately local to that structure. So if you take nothing from Hannah's spiel about protecting your structure from wildfire, like set your first 5 feet up so that if anything, if an ember were to land there, there would be nothing that could catch on fire there. So best practices is like cobble or river stone. It can look really nice. It's a little bit more austere than having like big bushes and garden beds, but I will tell you, like, it's easier maintenance and it can be kind of pretty. And when firefighters are responding to that structure to try to defend it from wildfire, we're like, oh, thank God, they've done their work in the immediate zone. So that's zone 1. Zone 2 is 5 to 30 feet. You can kind of see in this picture, like, we want to have some trees there, but we want for them to be reasonably well spaced, like at least 10 feet apart from each other. And then those the lowest branches on the trees that are in that zone limbed up so that there's separation between the grasses growing on the ground and the branches of the tree. And then we also want for you to be pretty on top of mowing in this zone. And then the last zone is 30 to 100 feet. And what we want to see there is some tree spacing, but less rigorous than in that 30-foot zone. So like, think like 6 feet between individual trees. To come back to our quiz question, aspens sort of get a pass in all of this. We don't want aspens growing in the first 5 feet. But like, aspens they're an incredibly wet, deciduous tree. Like they're really hard to catch on fire, with the exception of like 10 days or 2 weeks in the fall when the leaves are dry on the trees and then they're dry on the ground, that is when we can move fire through aspens. That is the same time window as the ptarmigan fire and the buffalo fire and the peak 2 fire. Like that is go time for wildfire moving through those fine, like kindling like fuels that are dead aspen leaves. So the aspens are okay as long as the leaves are well managed. Just to say, like, as soon as they hit the ground, they need to be out of there. Lodgepole pines, on the other hand, we have a lot of lodgepole pines here. That's sort of like the upside down bottle brush looking tree, if you will. Like when they're mature, they're like really spindly and have most of their foliage up at the top of the tree. That tree, like, it's adapted to high intensity stand replacing fire. Many of its adaptations as a species, thin bark, retention of low branches, serotinous cones that need heat in order to open and germinate, encourage high intensity wildfire through them. That species sees one fire has evolved to see one fire in its lifespan and then die and then regenerate. So like that's all well and good in the woods, but we don't want that kind of fire intensity near our structures, of course. And then Douglas fir and some of our other conifer trees that produce cones, Doug fir, blue spruce, Engelmann spruce, those trees see sort of a mixed intensity fire. Like in some places you'll see canopy torching, high intensity. In other places, the fire will just move through the underbrush, and in some places those trees won't burn at all. So really, like the spectrum of how our trees in Summit County burn, aspen is pretty chill, spruce and fir are sort of in the middle, and lodgepole pine are sort of red flag tree. So the lodgepole pine is the tree that we're really worried about. And if you're looking at doing mitigation work on a property where you have all three of those species, you can see how you can be like a little bit choosy about which ones you thin and which ones you leave based on the kind of fire behavior that you want to see there. And the last thing I'll say in this slide is like the tapering of these three zones sets us up so that if a fire is approaching the property, it's sort of getting the steam knocked out of it as it's approaching the structure. If it's a high intensity fire out at 100 feet, it's lower intensity in that 30-foot zone, and then it runs out of woody fuels to burn entirely when it gets to that 5-foot zone. And when that is paired with your home hardening efforts, then you have a structure that can kind of like sit through a wildfire pretty effectively. Good to go. Let's wait on that one. So, kind of punchlines on how we protect and save homes from wildfire. I want for you to be thinking less so about the sort of catastrophe fires that we see on the news. Those are really like a tiny proportion of how homes are lost in wildfires. Most home loss, like 90%, happens from flying embers. So like there's a fire out in the forest within a mile of your property, and the embers land in the yard or in the gutters or on the deck, and homes are most likely to catch on fire that way versus a flame front sort of rumbling through a neighborhood. But that latter scenario is the one that we see on the news most frequently, and so we sort of think about that as the worst case scenario, and it is terrible, but statistically we see home loss from embers way more frequently. So as you're thinking about, as you're like walking around your property thinking like, all right, if I were an ember, where would I land? Think about like little nooks and crannies, underneath decks, like any place that you have leaves pooling and sort of burbling, like getting wedged in corners. Those are also places where embers would probably want to do the same, just based on the wind patterns that landed leaves there. And then just to to hit one more time on that, the home hardening versus the home ignition zones. Like those two efforts need to work in concert, and you can't really do one without the other. And probably listening to me thinking like, Hannah, I can't like put a new roof on all of my buildings, or like, Hannah, I can't replace the siding. But as those sort of capital projects come due, think about killing two birds with one stone, and accomplishing your aesthetic goals with your wildfire mitigation goals, with your installation goals. Like they can all talk to each other. I just want you to be like thinking about the wildfire resistance of structures as those home hardening projects come due. And then the home ignition zones, like working with homeowners and property managers to figure out plans for their defensible space is my whole job. So if you're like, this makes sense in theory, but how do I overlay the principles onto my property? Like in our last slide, my contact information is there, and we do these assessments for free. Like I come and meet with you and walk around the property, and I give you recommendations that you are not beholden to act on. Like they are just, it's just me relaying best practices and my observations based on what I think the fire behavior would be like on a certain property, and also what I think is best ecologically for the property. We live in the mountains, and our clients visit the mountains because it's a beautiful place. And my goal is never to like end up with a lot that feels sort of denuded or scraped. Like we can find compromise in accomplishing our wildfire mitigation goals and making it like a really lovely yard to look out into. Mm-hmm. All right, quiz.
About 15 seconds.
Oh, this one's a real doozy.
Is it showing up on your end, Nicole?
I don't see it here yet.
Let's try that.
Um,
This is good.
So while we're waiting for the quiz to pop up, I think a really great resource for everyone just listening in to the meeting and kind of taking notes here today. Definitely lean on the fire department and talk to folks like Hannah about defensible space and making sure that your home is set up for success and also for safety. One of the things that we did last year at my house was, some of the easy things that you can do really quickly, going outside with a rake and some of those big lawn and leaf bags and clearing debris and, fallen tree branches and pine needles and things like that. And I have to tell you guys, there's nothing more satisfying than looking at your yard after doing all of that tidying up. It looks so nice. So not only does it look nice, but it also protects you from fire danger. So I think it's a really important note to make that not all of these things are going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Removing trees is expensive. But there are a lot of other things that you can do that just need a little bit of elbow grease and a little sweat equity to pour into your property. And whether that's you or if you hire a local company to help you do that, that's great. There are a lot of ways that you can do this without setting yourself up for some big ticket expenses right out of the gate.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. And like, it's an excellent point, especially like that zone 1, 0 to 5 feet. You guys can imagine, like, if you have trees that you need to cut down, like you do that once, and you plan for it, and you budget for it, and like sort of rip that band-aid off. But the rest of the management of the zones is like, it's really just yard work, like making sure that there aren't leaves getting piled up next to the house, and making sure that you come and hit it with a weed whacker or a lawnmower a couple times a summer. It doesn't have to be a massive lift. And the last thing I'll say about the money and the cost of tree removal, just for your radars, I'm sure many of you have utilized this tool, but the county has a hazardous fuels reduction grant program that funds hazardous fuels reduction at a 50-50 match. So if you're looking at like at a bill that feels a little bit too big, then we can talk about what it would look like to get that funded in part through this county funding.
That is fantastic. I always forget about that. But yeah, everyone lean on the county, use those resources. They're available to you for a reason. And it's sort of a what's good for the goose is good for the gander situation, right? You know, if we're working together, public-private partnership type of situation, then we can help everyone to do better in a fire.
We've had, I mean, the insurance issues will also not be new to many of you, I don't think. And we've had great luck with wildfire mitigation efforts that yield either resumption of coverage or reduced premiums. Many insurance companies are receptive to these efforts. Like they want to see that you know what you should be doing and you're doing it. So we can help with that too. So it doesn't look like my my quiz is going to be able to come up, but here was the riveting question: what is more important to saving homes from wildfire? Structure hardening, managing woody fuels in the yard, or trick question, both. So obviously the answer was both on that one. All right, a couple more slides, then we'll take questions. So I know many of you have heard of Summit County Alerts. This is a text message or email alerting system that alerts you to all manner of happenings in the county, road closures, utility outages, evacuations, school closures and delays. What's cool about this is you can sort of choose what you want to hear about. Like, I live in Silverthorne. I don't think about Blue River all that often. I don't get any alerts from Blue River. I don't have children in school yet, so I don't do any of the school alerts. You can sort of scale it so that you're not getting blown up all the time with alerts that you don't want to hear about. And also as a subscriber myself, like I get an ST alert maybe once a month, once every couple months. It's not super frequent, and when I get them, I'm happy that I know about them. Yeah, maybe not super important for like all of your visitors or your visitors who are here for a week and never come back. But if you have regulars or folks who are owners and who are here for a couple of weeks every year, this is a great thing for them to have, so they can kind of plug into what's happening in the community for the time that they're here. So if that's SC alerts. The other big thing is that they have upgraded the system. So if you were subscribed before, you need to re-subscribe. Kind of a pain in the butt, but like the old system is going away. Click this QR code and take 5 minutes and re-sign yourself up.
Yeah, and if you're on the SAVRM newsletter, you'll see that we're including the SC alert mention on pretty much every newsletter these days because we are heading into fire season. We are heading into that time of year when we're going to have a lot of guests in-house over the summer. And, you know, right now is a great time to start incorporating things like that into your messaging, especially pre-arrival. If you have folks, like Hannah was saying, who are repeat guests, if you have people from the Front Range who come up a couple of times a month and stay for 2 nights at a time, even if they're only here for 2 nights at a time, you just never know what could happen. So that system will help if there's any kind of an emergency situation. It just gets the word out a lot faster. And also as a property manager, it alleviates some of the pressure on you. You still obviously want to message your guests if there's an emergency happening, but this is another layer to that that will help get the word out maybe faster than you can or faster than your staff can.
Awesome. Okay, that's the end of our slide deck. Here's Megan's contact info at the top. There's mine at the bottom. That QR code is just for Summit Fire EMS's website. If you need to track down any of the resources that we've talked about today, they're all there, or you can just bug one of us and we will escort you there ourselves. Looks like we have a couple minutes for questions if anyone has questions.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much, Megan and Hannah. It was really informative and super great content for all of our property managers and the homeowners. If folks have questions, you can drop them here in the Q&A box while we're kind of wrapping things up today. But we will make sure to get the recording of this out to everyone that signed up for the webinar today. And we will also send it out to the SAVRM member list. So be on the lookout for that. You can share this with folks who you think might be interested. And as always, if you are currently a member of SAVRM, thank you for joining us. If you need to renew, I hope you'll renew and stick with us so you can stay up to date on important content like this. Our goal going forward for the rest of 2025 will be to make sure that we are sharing educational opportunities as much as possible, especially when it's things like this that help support our community. So seeing no questions coming in, thank you so much for your time today. And I hope everyone has a beautiful week. Enjoy your day, and we will see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.